It is Saturday, February 23rd, 2013, and today's random screenshot comes from Xenedra of the Balmung server. Looks like she's getting ogled over. Good morning, everybody. Nel Celestine here, and today we have a special guest on. I'd like to introduce JMHCurly. Welcome to the show.
It's JMHCurly, and hello, internets. How are you doing? And thank you for having me on, Nell.
Not a problem. Have you had your coffee this morning yet?
Well, I woke up early this morning to see the live letter from the producer, much to the chagrin of my girlfriend. And no, I have not had my coffee all day today.
Aw, no coffee for you. Well, as he mentioned there, the live letter was early in the morning. Now, by the time you hear this show, it'll probably be the next day, but we'll go over the letter now because, once again, they probably don't have everything out, but we do have a few points that we want to discuss personally, and primarily some of the pictures and a few of the questions that stood out to us. So, I'm going to start off here. Did you see the picture, which I will throw up on the screen now, of the new Adventure Fighter armor?
I did indeed see the new Adventurer Fighter armor, and it looks pretty sweet. The thing that I like most about whenever we see new armor designs coming out of Akihiko Yoshida is it has this very, organized complexity to it. Like, everything's very complex, there's lots of bits and bobs on all the armor, but it doesn't feel messy, it doesn't feel cluttered. At least that's my opinion. I'm not a professional.
No, it does look very nice and sleek. I like the fact that there's the armored section on one shoulder, the hip satchel that looks armored on one side.
Yeah, I think everybody's a big fan of hip satchels.
Speaking of hip satchels, if anyone remembers my February 13th episode where I sent the question to Rikiri, if you'd like to check the comments there, she actually replied.
Yep, she's very good about responding to the community, which is always good to see from community representatives.
Jumping back onto the train with the actual armor, though, I'm hoping that this is not Grand Company armor and this is actually craftable so we can dye it, because I would love to have a set of that in purple.
I don't, this is just my personal opinion, naturally, but I don't think anything that they showed off to us is Grand Company armor. Just because, none of the colors on here really look like Grand Company colors, and I don't know, I don't think it would have been appropriate for this live letter to be showing off a whole bunch of Grand Company things. If you don't mind my rambling a little bit, I was also gonna say, that I like that the armor designs that we're seeing are more complex, and as opposed to a lot of the things that we had in 1.0, where for a very long time all of the armor and the equipment was very mundane and, not exactly what evokes a feeling of Final Fantasy.
Not to mention that a lot of it was just the same with a little extra piece added on.
Yes, and that's, while that's okay sometimes, it's not, that's basically all we had, so.
Alright, well, let's take a look at the next suit of armor here. We have a suit that looks sort of like it's being built for a ninja.
It does indeed look like it's being built for a ninja, but I think, I don't think so, just because, and we'll go over it in a little bit here, but they were asked questions during the live letter about, what kind of jobs and classes that they wanted to see, and ninja was, of course, bandied about because everybody loves ninjas, and they said they haven't really begun any work on it, or at least they didn't even hint that, they're thinking about it, but I don't think that this is ninja gear.
No, it's definitely not, considering the fact that, like they said, they haven't implemented it yet, but it definitely looks very Asian Knight-ish, I guess, is the best description.
It is, yeah, it's very Eastern inspired, and on the backside, all the way on the far right of that image, you can kind of see a little shuriken style emblem right on his back there. it does invoke that feeling of kind of a ninja.
Not to mention, too, if you look above the picture and it's slightly faded out, it looks like there's, if you've watched Naruto, the Japanese animated series, it looks like a Sharingan symbol.
It does look like the Sharingan. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to anger all of the anime fans out there. Now they're going to have our heads now.
Well, it's not like I have many subscribers to lose.
Ouch.
Alright, let's move on to the next set. Clearly it's a revised Onion set.
You know, when we all got that dinky Onion helmet, you know, I don't think any of us suspected that this awesome armor set was going to help complete it. And I'm always a big fan of, like, the Onion Knight set. Like, when we saw Onion Knight from, like, Final Fantasy III and in Dissidia. Not to talk about too many other Final Fantasies on this 14 related show, but this is, to me, it's very similar to that same like style of armor.
Well, Yoshida-san is very clearly influenced a lot by Final Fantasy III, as we'll take a look at a few other things here. But yeah, the Onion set looks pretty phenomenal now. I'm kind of hoping that it's all low-level gear, because the hat is pretty useless after 10.
Yeah, I think it'll be lower level sets, and although if you're running the official benchmark, we see a lot of that more mundane gear that we're used to in the official benchmark, I think it's more because they don't want to show off everything that they've got in terms of just like all of these really incredible gear sets. And
they gotta leave some sort of surprise for when we actually get in.
Yeah. I was watching the stream with some friends, and they were like, "Oh, go to this place and it'll die. Go to this place and it'll die." I was like, "No, don't, because then we're not going to be able to explore it in the game ourselves." You know, I like exploring.
Exploring is half the fun of a game.
Mm-hmm. Especially since from what we've seen, it looks like they've taken some real time and effort to make it worth exploring.
Speaking of lots of effort, let's take a look at the next set of armor here. We got a new Sorcerer set.
Now, I'm in love with this, and I think I really hope that it's an Arcanist thing or something, because I think it looks awesome. And the big thing to take away, I think, from this image is that it says a level 15 Adventurer, you know, Sorcerer. So this is a level 15 gear set, when it looks awesome.
Especially considering the fact that low-level gear in most games are pretty useless most of the time. And the fact that this looks absolutely phenomenal and it's a low-level gear.
Yeah, this might be like a high-quality craft or like a complete drop set out of a dungeon. We don't really have any idea. But hopefully with the vanity system that will be in the game, you know, since I really like this gear, I think I'm going to be wearing it for a long time, at least for the looks.
I don't personally play Mage that much, but if I play Mage, I might go with something similar to that.
I'm so looking forward to Summoner, you don't even know.
Actually, I do. You told me several times before. Alright, moving on, we've got the Professional Heavy set. I think this looks a little bit similar to some of the stuff we've already had, but it definitely looks like there's a lot of improvements, especially in the leg area.
Yeah, it's a very, like, tanky, like, definitely Paladin, you know, we've got that white and blue kind of, you know, like, base colors going on here. Also, poor Foxclaw over there in the background looks so tired.
Don't forget, this is ridiculously early for them, or is it ridiculous?
It is.
No, it's ridiculously late.
Well, it's ridiculously late for them, ridiculously early for us over here in the States, or in your case, in Canada. Not to give away where you're at.
Oh, we're only the second largest land
all the fans, they're gonna connect all of the pins together with the red strings of yarn. They're gonna triangulate the position. They're gonna be like, "That's where Nel Celestine is. Let's get her."
Would you kindly not tell them that? Bioshock reference to the first episode. Okay, let's move on to the PvP set. I would have to say, I am not too sure on this set. This looks rather weird to me.
So, I think this was the second PvP set they showed us alongside the Golden Lion. So we have this bear, curious set, and I'm just gonna call it the silver bear because that's what it is. It is very different from what we're used to seeing, even from Akihiko Yoshida as far as his gear designs have gone so far for this game. But they said that I believe they said that in the actual live letter that they wanted to do something different for the PvP gear sets, and I know personally I'm very interested in the PvP, so I'm gonna get them all because I'm crazy.
Speaking of that line set that you mentioned before, I'll throw that up here now.
Now, I think out of the two PvP gear sets, the Leo armor definitely takes the cake, because this stuff looks pretty incredible.
This honestly looks to me like, I don't know why, but someone correct me if I'm wrong, if you've ever seen this one series called Garo, it was a late-night Japanese show, basically Power Rangers meets World of Darkness for adults. And the armor set here looks a lot like the armor that the guy was wearing in that show.
I just pulled up a quick image, and you might be right there. It is a little bit reminiscent of that. I think it looks awesome. It's not very typical, again, of Final Fantasy, but except for maybe like the weapons themselves.
That sword is pretty badass.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it looks like Excalibur. I know it's not, but that's just kind of the feeling that I get from it.
Okay, let's take a look at a couple of other things. Let's shift topics here. Remember I mentioned before that there was a lot of Final Fantasy III references.
Yes.
A couple of things to note from this shot here, there's some concept art. It looks like they're pulling stuff not just from Final Fantasy III, but also from 5 and 6, as you can see in the top left, or sorry, the bottom left and the bottom right.
This I love the way that they've drawn the Cloud of Darkness up in the top left. Going back to Final Fantasy III, I think she looks incredible there, and I definitely want to get in dungeons and go kick her butt and get all of the sweet loots. I love that they're making some, like, it's looking like it's going to be a little bit like, Fandom Fantasy 14, but you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with fighting Cloud of Darkness and Gilgamesh and all the other, like, kind of iconic, Final Fantasy bosses, because it's awesome. Whatever. I kind of missed out on quite a lot of Final Fantasies, so I'm kind of looking forward to experiencing it.
Okay, now, you've played a lot of Final Fantasy, and I know I've played a lot of Final Fantasy. The gentleman in the middle between the Mughals and the Onion-Knight armor is unfamiliar to me. Is he familiar to you?
I got no idea. I was hoping that you would know.
Well, if anybody in the comments does know, please feel free to comment down below, so that way we don't look like complete idiots.
Well, I think we're past that point.
Hey, I don't look like a complete idiot. I just look like most of an idiot.
Oh, okay.
Alright.
Only most.
Alright, speaking of looking like an idiot, let's take a look at some of these pets.
How dare you? They're so adorable.
I know! Oh, the goblin one in particular has just had me squee. No, I'm not actually gonna squee. Too bad. No. Sorry, fans. Not happening. What do you think of the goblin one, though?
I think the goblin one is super cute, and you see, like, it has, like, for reference, they use, like, the little goblin plushie that they have, that Square Enix has on their own, merchandise store, so it's adorable, and, on the official forums, you'll find some people who are complaining that they don't think vanity pets should, be a part of, A Realm Reborn, but, they're not hurting anything, and they look adorable, and since we know the game isn't going to go free to play, and a cash shop has never been talked about, I personally just kind of want to dispel that feeling that, there's going to be one. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with a cash shop, that's just not how Yoshida wants to do things. He wants to stick with the subscription model, so I feel like most of these pets will either be bought or, you know, quest rewards, or even achievement rewards, which I think that's what they need to be.
I agree. And I'm really, really glad that he's making them more as a reward and not so much... Well, I'm really kind of hoping then that some of them aren't like, hey look, in order to get this one pet, you have to go and beat like every dungeon in the game, because that would kind of defeat the point of having just a little pet for that. That kind of thing should be like an awesome piece of gear.
Yeah, or some crazy title or whatnot.
Yeah, but these should be not so much easy to get, because yeah, you want a challenge to get some of them, but make them a little bit challenging, but don't make them too challenging.
Yeah, I remember, you know, talking about other MMOs. I remember in Warcraft, everybody you know, in vanilla Warcraft wanted an emerald whelpling, and you could only get it for like farming in some marshland somewhere. And you know, it was an incredibly rare drop, and it sold for like bajillions of gold at the time. Everybody wanted one. I never got one. I wanted it. I farmed.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if you ever played Warcraft.
I'm going to be honest, I played 15 minutes. It wasn't for me, but I can understand how it would be enjoyable for some. Let's move on to a couple of other pets here. There's a baby sylph.
As you can see, also see the little baby behemoth in the background of that same picture, which we've seen a few times before now.
Alright, here's another one. This one got me right in the tearjerkers. If you've ever taken a look up Selene Artemis's comic called Happier Days, I believe it's called.
I believe it's you can find it on the RPC forums, and you can also find it on the official forums. I believe they talked about it on the front page of Gamerscape as well.
Yes, they did, and it's also apparently on Reddit somewhere, so have a look around. But, take a look at it, and you'll understand why this is a bit of a tearjerker. Here's a picture of a baby Goo-Goo.
So to understand why it's the tearjerker, you're gonna pause the video now, go read the comic, and then come back and rejoin us, and then you'll start, the tears will flow from you. I love the fact that we're getting so many, like, the you know, baby creatures, because they're adorable. I'm not gonna lie. My manhood points are, you know, I'm gonna have to turn in my man card.
I'll just accept that over here. I'll put it right in my shredder.
Okay.
You don't get this back.
That's a real shame.
Alright. Next up on the pets, I'm assuming this is supposed to be an imp, but I'm not entirely sure.
Piecing together a couple of translations, Reinhardt from the official forums, wonderful gentleman, was doing a live, as best he could, live translation. And between that and a few other things, this is supposed to be a, like, baby demon wall. And seeing that it's like a little brick, I think it's hilarious.
It's a baby demon wall!
Yep, see?
That's so adorable!
The demon wall looks absolutely terrifying in the one piece of artwork that we've seen of it, but the fact that it's like a little brick with wings and feet coming out of it, I think that's hilarious. Like, you know, I think it pays for the game to have a good sense of humor about itself. Are you okay there? Have you recovered?
That's just so adorable, I want it.
Also, it looks like a demon piece of tofu.
Or a demon sugar cube.
Oh, brother.
Curse
I wonder
your
how
coffee.
big it is.
I'm gonna have to get someone to draw that for the show.
Oh, dear. I wonder how big it is, though.
If it's anything like I'm expecting, it's probably a third of the height of the player.
Seems a little bit big.
Well, if you looked at some of the shots that, the drawings that Yoshi had of, they had him with a couple of the baby pets running behind him, and they were all about a third of his height.
Yeah, you might be right.
Alright, let's take a look at this one. It's a tadpole.
So I think it's supposed to be a baby Gigantoad. I mean, that's the only thing I can think. You know, it's a tadpole, so, you know, frog. And if anybody's ever played 1.0, we all hate frogs. We really hate them. But it is a pretty cute little tadpole. I guess it'll just kind of float around you, much like the little baby bomb we saw in the live letter, which I love the baby bomb. I'm getting that. You don't even understand.
What I kind of hope is the tail moves up a little bit so he looks like a music note, because in Japan, the word for music note and the word for tadpole is apparently the same word.
See, now you're tempting me to go talk about Majora's Mask with the Baby Zora section where all the baby Zoras look like notes, but I'm gonna restrain myself.
Actually, that's not where I learned it from. I learned it from Super Mario RPG, because all the tadpoles are music notes there.
Ah, you're right. I didn't play that one until much later, unfortunately.
Alright, enough retro gaming aside. We're both very big retro gamer fans, if you haven't guessed. Maybe we could do a show on that someday. Next up, we're not going to do any more pets. Got one more picture I want to show, and then we'll move on to some of the questions that were asked. This is probably one of my favorite things that I thought was missing from 14.
Yes, Mandragoras. We need them, and I think we're also getting is that the Mandy pet, I believe, that they're showing off? Like, because they showed it off with all the pets, so I assume that it's a part of, like, we might be able to get it as a pet as well.
I'm hoping it's a pet, because that would be absolutely adorable to have one as a pet.
So, anybody who's ever played 11, much like the goblin that we showed at the beginning of this little section, this will get you right in the feels, and then probably make you upset, because you're like, it's gonna put me to sleep! It's gonna dream flower! I don't want it! But, Mandragoras, I don't want this game to be 11-2, but,
just little hints
little tiddly bits and asides to, where we've come from is perfectly fine with it. Besides, we've seen it in a couple of videos now, as of like 2 days ago, so it looks good in the world. It doesn't break anything.
Alright, let's move on to a couple of questions then, shall we?
Sure thing.
One thing I would like to note is probably the fact that there was a couple of questions right off the bat about housing.
Everybody's... Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm super excited for housing, as is everybody else, and I believe they said something about the fact that it would be in and around Phase 3.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the early testers are going to be fiddling around with the housing and finding out how to get it to work. And they showed a couple of pictures, which I'll throw up here now. So while we're talking about this, you should see a few pictures from the live show about this. But one thing that stood out to me and a lot of people was, hey look, bathtubs and pools. Yeah,
we can clean our stinky adventurer bodies. I feel like it adds a little homeliness to it, and if housing works anything like it did in 11 in terms of like kind of giving you passive buffs, maybe some kind of passive buff will be attached to the bathtub or the pool or whatnot. I also like how we have a bunch of different bathtubs for like each nation.
I'm actually, if I can jump in there for a second.
Go ahead.
If it's going to give us status buffs, and I know Yoshida-san is a huge fan of Monster Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Monster Hunter Portable 3rd had like a hot spring that would give buffs whenever you would get in it between missions. So maybe he was inspired a little bit by that.
Yeah, like they just kind of showed it and they were like, yeah, bathtub, cool guy, They didn't really talk much about it, as they have a tendency to do in the live letter. They just started showing things at us and they were all like, what is that? What is that? I don't even know. But yeah, I am definitely for the idea of some kind of passive buff. Either like you take a bath and you get like a buff that lasts for maybe 30 minutes to an hour. But the unfortunate reality of housing is I don't think anybody's going to be able to afford the house of their dreams at the start of the game. I think at launch it's going to be prohibitively expensive for a reason. The game needs gill sinks. A lot of people are holding on. Yeah. And a lot of people are holding on to a lot of gil. I know some people who've got like the hundreds of millions of gil.
And that's gonna go not very far after those houses come out.
Yeah, if even, as they said before, they said like the largest house, like price together the large plot with the large house will make, like, even the most, like, wealthy of players be like, whoa, jeez. So.
Alright. What about you? Did you see a couple questions that stood out to you?
A couple of questions that stood out to me were, really kind of like the first question that stood out to me, mostly because, like, the whole letter I was like, come on, show us Arcanist, please, 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 just, like, pop to it for, like, 3 seconds and summon Carbuncle and I'll be totally satisfied. I never did, I'm so upset. But, you know, and so the first question that popped out to me, because of kind of my interest in new jobs, because on my personal, you know, my character, I'm maxed out, at least on my main, on all of the combat classes. And so, first question was, you know, was there any information that they could give us, question 11, about new classes and jobs like Thief, Ninja, Samurai, and Musketeer? And, you know, Yoshida's answer was that there's a lack of kind of like Scouty and Caster classes, so, and obviously overseas players are talking about Ninja and Samurai because they were very popular jobs in 11, and so they want a good variety of jobs. So they kind of dodged the question there, and I was hoping that they might hint towards Musketeer, just because my personal feeling is they should deliver on all of kind of like the promises that the original dev team made as far as the classes that will be available.
Actually, to jump in on that, I believe it was in an interview that Fusion X over at Gamerscape had with Yoshida-san that they do want to, or at least Yoshida-san wants to bring Musketeer in or something, using the Musketeer Guild as the next thing because of the fact that it's already in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Like, to add new classes, we need new guilds. But to add new guilds, we need new locations. So it's kind of like the Musketeers Guild is already in the game. It would be easiest to extrapolate something from that. And people's obvious inclination for gun-wielding classes like Corsair, but I'm not sure, and, you know, pardon me for rambling, I'm not sure Corsair really has a place, because the buffing, debuffing roles are really going to be, you know, it's going to be a little bit imbalanced with both Arcanist and Summoner and Bard fulfilling that kind of role.
Well, Corsair doesn't necessarily have to be about buffs like it was in 11.
You're absolutely right. It's just, you know,
it could be a straight range DPS, and when it switches to Corsair, it gets additional attack types.
Yeah, and you know, like elemental bullets or something like that. Some people have bandied about with the idea of Red Mage coming off of Musketeer, but for my purposes, and since they really want to maintain classical feelings for the jobs, so we're more likely going to see the Fencer type Red Mage, I think, if we see it at all.
Well, I do believe he mentioned Red Mage somewhere else in the interview.
Okay. I haven't... Well, pardon me, I haven't read everything like you have, apparently. Just saying.
You should have watched yesterday's show. It was linked all in the bottom.
Okay, fine. Now that I got my foot in my mouth here, I kind of want to see, like, a ranged thief come off of it, but I know that's not very classically Final Fantasy, you know. We'll just have to wait and see. We can speculate all we want, but at the end of the day, they're going to be like, this is it, guys, you know.
Here's the new class, enjoy, and we'll all be like, everybody level it, and then we're all why is there a full party of this thing?
But speaking of classes and jobs, they did say that you know, originally Summoner wasn't going to be in at launch, but now it is, just because of the way that development has progressed. So awesome.
So that's going to be awesome then, because that means we'll actually have a full storyline to go with it when it comes out.
Mm-hmm. And we won't, like, because I was planning on just leaving it at, you know, Arcanist at 30 and then waiting for Summoner to come out, but now I don't have to. Or was there a question that I think we've talked this subject a little bit to
Yeah,
death.
I think we've covered this one quite a bit, so let's jump over into the binding system and the reason why it was implemented according to one of the questions.
So, I'll go ahead and read it. All items that generate spirit bonds will become bound, and the reason for this is that used gear would flood the marketplace and it would become difficult for crafters to, new crafters to break into the market. So they're doing this to stimulate the marketplace. And I quite like this idea, personally. I know in 11, and I hate to talk about that so much, but that's just kind of like the big thing to reference for people who might not have even played 14, but both in 14 and 11 there was this big emphasis on recycling your gear. It's like, okay, I'm done with it, I'm gonna go sell it again, and
prices
you just kind of
steadily
like,
dropped.
yeah, and you just kind of like, everybody ends up getting like your hand-me-downs and whatnot, and the prices sort of steadily decline and whatnot. But with this system, we'll end up turning our old gear into materia that we'll put on our new gear, and then crafters will be continually making new gear at all level ranges. So it won't become, where there's just this wealth of lower level gear that's just kind of being traded from hand to hand for new players or old players, because everybody's kind of gonna get new gear.
That's going to be relatively useful, especially because a lot of materia, they said they're going to be changing that around. So if it's spirit bound and you don't want it anymore, you might as well convert it and sell the materia.
Yeah, or use it if it ends up being a good piece, a good piece of materia. I know I intend to do a lot of crafting since, all my jobs are maxed out with the exception of Arcanist when that comes out. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I know some people are kind of like, but I think in the end, crafters will rejoice because they'll be, people who are hardcore into it will be wealthy beyond their wildest dreams.
Yeah, it's true. Now, we're starting to run it quite a bit long here, so let's wrap it up with one more question.
Alright.
Go right ahead and pick one more that was interesting to you.
So I think probably one of... and maybe this didn't interest you as much as it interested me, but Fates. How did you feel about Fates from what we saw?
Personally, I like them. I like the fact that the NMs are going to be Fates, which means more so if you want the NM or the item from NMs, you don't have to sit there and try to get claim over someone else. It's just going to be participation, and then I believe it's going to be...
just luck.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I'm kind of glad on that part. At the same time, I think the Fates, as long as they're not intrusive, will be also really good too then. Because the last thing you want is the, fishing. And I know most people are like, oh great, fishing. But yeah. I'm using this as an example because it's very calm. You're fishing at one spot where you fish all the time. And you're pretty much like half paying attention because fishing is monotonous.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you get smacked and insta-killed because you weren't paying attention to a fate out of nowhere.
Yeah, that definitely wouldn't be a good thing. And I suppose this isn't a real question. I apologize, but I think it's something that we should probably talk about. And they, lots of people had questions about Fates, and to demo it, they just kind of showed us a couple, which was really awesome. And maybe you'll have footage of it going on in the background. I don't think it will be intrusive, and the reason why is the first Fate they showed us, Yoshi walks up and talked to an NPC who had the purple exclamation mark, right? Then all of the monsters appeared around him. So I think it's that soft instancing of monsters like we used to see in Guild Leaves, and like we still see in Guild Leaves. But it's that, but on like an, you see it, you go to it, you join it, and you see the mobs that are relevant to the fate that you're in. And this way it keeps, everything from becoming super cluttered, or, just crazy, or like you said, the fishing example, you're just minding your own business, and all of a sudden, a giant colossus comes and stomps you, and you're just a pile of goo at that point.
Pretty much.
The Fate system is very much like public questing from Warhammer, or to give the more relevant and recent example, Guild Wars 2's just, event system, which is a super fun system. Unfortunately, and I love the game. It's a great game. I'm not bashing it. Don't hate me, internet. But it's kind of like 90% of the game's content are these open world events. And but I think the Fate system is just one more awesome addition. Just one more layer of all of the different types of content that we're seeing in the game, which is great. You know, we've got fates, leaves, guild leaves,
guild hests.
Guild hests.
Yeah.
We haven't even seen that. We don't know what that's going to be like. And the fate system kind of looks like old behests, but we'll see. We've got dungeons, PvP. You could just go around and kill stuff if you wanted to. I'm sure there's something I'm leaving out, but
it looks like there's going to be stuff for everybody.
Yeah, it looks like and that's a great thing, because the thing about 1.0 is like, what do we do? Guild leaves. Okay, to level up in 1.0, we all did two things. We all did guild leaves every day when they every 1.5 days when they reset. We all panicked to get them all done because they would go to waste initially, and two, we all did rapture parties because EXP. It's the only really good way to get it at a certain level. But I'm rambling a little bit.
Alright, well, this has definitely been a longer episode, so we're going to have to wrap it up here. Maybe we'll invite you again soon, and we'll discuss some more topics from the show.
It would be my pleasure.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. As always, please leave any positive or negative comments in the box below. You can follow me on Twitter at Nel Celestine. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already, and you can send any screenshots or topic suggestions over the private message on YouTube or over on the Lodestone official topic. This is Nel Celestine, and
JMHCurly.
Bidding you adieu. And stop.